Good. Thanks, Gina.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is the July 15th, 9 a.m. board briefing of the Board of County Commissioners. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners Jordan, Waldrop, French, and Kearns are in the conference room. Commissioner Cuny is out today. We are going to lead off with a presentation from Doug Chase. Doug, take it away.
Okay, good morning, commissioners, and I'll actually tee this up and hand it off to Commissioner French. We've enjoyed working with Commissioner, who has been meeting with various community leaders and interested parties to explore a concept of providing sport facilities on or adjacent to the Spokane County Fair and Expo grounds. So with that, I will hand it over to the commissioner. I think, Ron, we have a couple slides queued up, and then I will help add anywhere that I can.
Slides or images?
The images. Yeah,
Well, thanks, Doug. So I mentioned several weeks ago that STA was moving forward with acquiring and building a maintenance facility and training facility that would relieve their training operations off of the property that lies just south of the fairgrounds, about 11 acres, that quite frankly, the county has been anxious to buy for as long as I've been here and be in control of. We do have a first right of refusal on the property. And so we're heading in a direction to where the county will actually be able to acquire the property and have security over that, over the future of the use of that property. In the meantime, just acquiring the property doesn't mean that we have the money to be able to develop it. So I was approached by Dave Condon about, trying to take the Sports County USA the next step and developing it more as a signature in having a facility that could accommodate a multitude of athletic facilities, especially during the winter months, where indoor sports like volleyball and basketball and other activities that happen inside, there aren't that many indoor courts in the community that can facilitate like a tournament. And so I was approached by Hoop Fest and then Spokane Youth Sports, about the idea of taking the 11 acres, if we could acquire it, and then the school district and the park department for the city, but more the school district and the other two organizations would put onto the property bubble structures that could accommodate indoor athletic activities and stuff. And so the conversation was, well, if the county owned the property, would we be able to enter into a use agreement and not transfer the property? The county would always own the property, just a use agreement that would allow for more athletic facilities, especially during the winter months on that property and stuff. And I said, well, I'm more than happy to carry it to the board. So we've been working, and then Garrett Jones and Doug had an opportunity to meet, and so this is very early in the process. What the school district wants to do is to get athletic facilities to serve East Central neighborhood, which is lacking in terms of athletic facilities. But they can also include this as part of their bond that is going to be on the ballot here in November, and pay for the structures in partnership with Hoop Fest and Spokane Youth Association. So the only thing we would have invested into it is doing what we originally wanted to do, which was buy the property. And I think we've always had REIT funds available to buy the property. But all the other financial investment into improvements and everything else would be handled through the other organizations and stuff. So I just got this morning from Doug a letter of intent that evidently we got last Friday. And I think I think the language that is used in this letter of intent is not reflective of the conversations we've had. The letter kind of insinuates that we're going to give the property to the school district, and that was never part of any conversation I had with them. The conversation was about allowing them to use the property until we had a higher and better use for it. But I think fundamentally the intent I support in that it would get us one, that south property, which we've wanted for as long as I've been here. But two, a use for the property so that it's not just a big parking lot. And something that would help support our Sports County USA tagline and stuff. So there are the reasons why I've engaged in the conversations with them and worked to try and bring this forward. There's still a lot of work to be done, including language on restructuring this letter of intent. But the goal is to try and have something to them so that they can put it on the ballot. And they were hoping to have something by the end of July. Well, giving this the letter to us on Friday and hoping that we could approve it on Tuesday is a little optimistic and stuff. So I would like to find out whether there is interest in the board to wordsmith a letter of intent to show that we're willing to be partners, but partners that more reflect our goals and our use of the property and how we would be able to share it on an interim basis. But if the board's not interested, well then great, you know, that kids will have to play in the street and it'll be your fault. That's fine. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of. So anyway, that's the nature of the request. Like I said, I don't know. I'd like to be able to say, you know, I'd like to have Doug and Matt go over this letter of intent and get it to something that would be more palatable from the county standpoint before officially taking an action on it. But I at least wanted to give you an update as to the nature of the conversations and where they've gone up to this point. And they did, without having any input from anybody, generate a couple graphics to kind of give an idea of what they were talking about. I think, Ron, if you want to go through a couple of them and just kind of give you an idea of what they're talking about. Now, this is clearly without any input from the county. So this is just a vision of somebody that couldn't sleep late at night. So take it for that. But, you know, you could end up with quite a few facilities on that property. I'd said in my conversations with them, I said, we can't do anything to jeopardize parking for the fair. I mean, that's a priority. That's our premier. And they said, we can adjust the schedule so that we don't do anything in any of these facilities when you've got the fair going on or any other activity that would demand the parking. And so what was relayed to me was that this layout actually provides more parking than we have right now. I think that's only because the parking we have right now, I don't believe is striped. And it's kind of a random, you know, some slots are 8 feet wide and some are 12 feet wide. I mean, it's just, there's nothing but having structured, and all, they would pay for all the improvements. There's no financial commitment for the county other than buying the property, which we always wanted to do anyway. So that's kind of a 50,000 foot look about what's possible. You know, you can see they can get quite a few activities on the property, and being inside bubble structures, I guess, you know, these are fairly inexpensive, but can be pretty massive in terms of what they can accommodate. So, but that's kind of the nature of the opportunity at this point, so. Answer any questions you might have, or, you know, like I said, I think this letter, I wouldn't recommend agreeing to the letter. It needs some finessing by Mr. Chase and by Mr. Folsom. Is the concept something you guys would be willing to pursue or not? Because if not, I mean, I just walk away from it.
Could I ask, what are the timelines with this? So I know STA is looking at the spot over at Mission and Green, kind of there. What would their timeline be because they need that built out before they'd be willing to sell
Yeah.
this, so
So
what's the time
you're looking at a 27, 28 project timeline
for STA to?
for
build theirs,
STA,
or-
for STA and the STA is the long lead item in this thing. Because we're gonna be going after some grant money and then you gotta build a facility, yada, yada, yada. They can build the training facility in a different timeline than what they can, the maintenance facility. So, because the training facility is just a big piece of asphalt. So that can happen a lot quicker, but we're looking at the 27, 28 timeline.
Okay. Aaron, do we ever park, do cars ever park where the fields are?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. I was gonna say, I know I've gone in that back entrance years past, but, okay, so people still park, what are the fields made of? I mean, is it something they can roll up? Because, I mean, if they're saying we won't use them during the fair, but they're not gonna want us to park on whatever the surface is.
They're concrete slabs, as I understand it, that
For-
are painted. Painted for the courts and stuff like that, but.
Those look like soccer fields.
Yeah, and that rendering is, I think the concept where there may be a large indoor bubble that may occupy not more than a third, where the remaining 2/3 is still parking.
Well, no, but
May be very attractive.
But
which
those
is-
there, those look like I'm going to assume full size, sorry, I don't, maybe they're
This
miniature.
rendering reflects that.
Is that gonna be AstroTurf? Is that gonna be
So-
I mean, kids aren't gonna play soccer on concrete, are they?
Yeah, you're way ahead of the process. All these are just raw, renderings of what would be possible. These
Okay.
are not what they're proposing.
Okay,
What what will actually be put there is something that has to be negotiated between Doug and Aaron and the county and them. But they needed something to present an idea with,
Mhm.
so they hired a renderer to
Okay.
create these graphics. But this has got no input from any of the stakeholders yet.
okay,
It's just an idea.
okay.
So on the timeline question, so so I'm following, because I'm not on
Yeah.
STA, so. The earliest that STA would want to sell this piece of property would be 27, 28.
Probably 27. Yeah.
But the school district is interested in being able to put together some kind of proposal for the ballot measure time.
Yeah. Yeah, they wanna be able to represent that doing something for East Central neighborhood
Right.
is on the table. And so this would help support youth athletics and stuff like that. So they can, as I understand it, I did meet with Alan Swinard and Rick Betts with the Hoop Fest and Herb Zachheim with Sports Youth Sports. And they said, what we want to do is be able to reflect a vision for the voters so that it could be included as part of the package. But in terms of the build out and stuff, there's a lot of work that has to
Yeah.
happen before they can actually make courts. So we really are at the visionary state. There's no hard line. That's why I really want to wordsmith this. There's no hard line about you will build X number of courts. We don't know that. And stuff, so there's a lot of work that has to happen still. But this is about, is it worth pursuing the concept or not? And if it is, great. If it's not, we stop here.
On the funding side, you mentioned REIT. Do we have REIT dollars budgeted, or is that something we have to kind of do a deeper dive on?
That's one of the things we gotta do a deeper dive on. Again, it's 2 years out
Yeah.
before we actually, and the other part of it is that there's nothing to say with STA as a partner that we would have to be a all cash sale, be a cash and contract sale. It could be a variety of different things. A lot of that stuff has to be vetted out. We have had on the table for as long as I've been here with STA, we want that property. Am I?
Yeah.
That, we want that property. We want to be in control of everything that happens on neighboring property and stuff. And so how we buy it, we got 2 years to figure that out. Do we want to buy it? We've always had a desire to buy it. It's in the best interest, fair to buy it. This is an opportunity where we buy the land and then somebody else pays for all the improvements.
Just a historical question, if the county's always had a eye for that property, has there been kind of an envisioned use for it historically? Not to say it couldn't be changed with new ideas, and I'm wondering if there's been something that it's been envisioned to be for from the county's kind of
One of
planning
the-
perspective.
One of the biggest things has been, we don't want someone else to buy it and then we lose the ability to use it for the parking.
Throw your neighbor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but Aaron, have you ever looked at expanding sort of programming onto that? Is there?
We haven't, the lot
Yeah.
does need a lot of work, so it's just really vital to what we're doing, especially with the fair. But as the baseball games and program has grown and our events are growing, we're seeing where baseball parking and our parking are merging together more and more. So we use that as an overflow area. And then we're trying to attract new events like the Renaissance Festival coming in October, which will use a lot of that parking area as well. And then at fair, it's just key for livestock trailer parking, our employee parking, our carnival parking. So, yeah, it would be not good if we had lost that space to utilize, especially during the fair, but as we are growing.
so are these envisioned as kind of temporary structures? Is that the idea of like the bubble? Or we don't know yet?
We don't know yet. I mean, they've talked about temporary structures, air bubbles, bubble structures. Those blow up and then you let the air out and they deflate. I mean, it just, they're not permanent. But they were permanent enough to where they keep you out of the weather.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, we really are at the very beginning of this conversation and there's, Aaron and Doug have got to work out a lot of details about, how do we share, if we can share, just a lot of stuff that has to happen, but there's time. And, quite frankly, if we get 2 years down the road and you say, you know what, it's just not going to work. There's no commitment to say, we're going to follow through. It's got to work based upon our terms to protect the fairground. That's the number one asset, it's the fair. So, but.
Scott?
A couple of things. One, on the REIT question, one of the key things for the board to reach some decision making on is how we're going to fund the campus infrastructure improvements. We've talked about REIT being part of the solution there, and knowing that our REIT levels have been less than what they had during the height of the refinancing. We don't have as much REIT in there. I think that's going to be a really key one on the financial side. Then, and Doug and Aaron, would you guys share kind of beyond the major uses during the fair, the 11 days of the fair? Talk about some of the overflow uses during other things. What other things? I know at Vista Stadium, the Indians use it for fireworks. What are some other uses of this particular property outside of the fair itself?
Yeah, like I mentioned, our grandstand, we'd like to program that more often. And that gives us the flexibility to utilize that parking back in that space. And we've done that before, where we've had a monster truck show back there. There's a baseball stadium, use with the game up front. So it allows us to accommodate all of the guests and get them to the different areas they're going. Baseball, I believe, had 22 or will have 22 fireworks nights this year. So it's pretty important to their use as well. That's a sponsorship opportunity, a revenue generator, and a huge, fan favorite to have those fireworks shows.
They
And
use that lot.
They
for launching
do.
the-
because we have to have a clearance area, so it's not impacting our events inside of the ground with debris or the guests' cars parked in the lot.
West end of it.
So I mean. If we don't wanna do it, that's fine. I mean, we can what if. All of the reasons why we don't wanna do this till the cows come home, it doesn't really change. I mean, fundamentally, what they're asking of us is. Are we willing to try and figure out a partnership, to try and accommodate youth sports? Plain and simple. We are, great, we'll figure it out. If we aren't, walk away. Not gonna do that, youth sports on that property, we're just gonna buy the property and turn it into a big parking lot. There's a business plan I wanna be part of. Anyway, that's the nature of the project.
Just an initial thought, there's a letter you're referencing,
Yeah,
right?
well, I just saw it,
Just came in.
evidently it came in on Friday.
I think it'd be interesting to take a look at that, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm personally, I'm open to, sounds like it's in the very early stages,
Very early.
conceptual, lots of kind of competing demands and on that property. My biggest question is kind of what's the state of REIT and kind of the county's financial piece there. I just really don't know. Like you said, it's a
Yeah.
couple years out, but we have some big demands against those revenue sources.
Well, the other thing is we don't know what kind of grant money is available too.
Right.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that somebody like Senator Riccelli would buy into very, very quickly, and I know that they've had conversations with him already.
So I'm not like personally opposed to exploring as long as we're not committing, because there's a lot of unanswered questions, of course, by nature of it being very early. So that's kind of my general take, interesting concept. Maybe let's do some exploring on it without commitment.
It would be the pleasure of the board.
No, I'd be willing to explore it. I mean, looks like, it's a great concept. I think the things we just gotta keep in mind is whatever is placed there has to truly be temporary. Because when the fair rolls around, I mean. Parking, that there are certain days where parking is very, very, at a premium there. We need to make sure that we can still, and Aaron, I know. There have been years where during the fair, I think the Indians had maybe 1 or 2 games or something, so.
We're talking about that for this year, there may be some.
Yeah, so just, I mean, being cognizant of all of those things and making sure that those are
Yeah.
things we'll have to tackle at some point to make sure if this moves forward. That, it truly is temporary, that if it needs to be wrapped up for, for 2 weeks and then rolled back out when, after the fair or any other renters of the facility, folks that are using, so. But yeah, I'd be interested in seeing if there's a way we can work around those.
There's 2 other elements I need to make you aware of. To the east, you see the lake there. That's John Stone's Larry Stone's property. And they are going to be reaching out to Larry to see if they can maybe put some of the parking on his property. And then he also now owns the property to the north that used to be Central Premix. And their laydown yard and stuff. So they're also gonna be approaching him about, is there any opportunity to maybe convert that into parking for the fair or backup parking and stuff. So, you know, like I say, we're at the early stages of an idea. A lot of stuff to be worked out.
Well, and I think on a positive, just even exploring it, is it can bring some new energy to that area. And there's a lot of talk about creating a district and revitalizing Havana and Broadway. So that could be really bright for our future for everyone.
Do you guys feel it's worthwhile to explore?
I think so. I think if it's balanced and we have the ability to take time, that there's really great potential to complement like the campground. A lot of folks like to travel sports related, and that could be a good complement.
So right now, during the peak fair, is that fully used for parking? Just so I'm following.
Pretty
It's
well,
Pretty
yeah.
packed. Okay.
So I think it's more.
That's just one of the demands, balancing. that you're
Right.
at.
Right, if they're not able to find more expanded land, then how can the site continue to function in various ways? So I think there's really good, there could be some exciting potential there, just take some time to be able to look at it.
And then we should have better decision making this year on our and campus infrastructure improvements, so we'll have a better sense in the shorter term how viable that funding option is, right?
Yeah, I mean, historically, we've always thought that that would be the pool of money we'd tap into, but. You know, with the idea of going to athletic. Shoot, we might end up being eligible for grant money we weren't eligible before. Because it's around athletics and stuff as opposed to just the fairground. I don't know, you know, just there's a lot of, I think there are more unknowns than knowns at this stage. Go through it. If there's a deal there, great, and if there's not, walk away.
So this, you're saying this should be edited to
Oh,
reflect.
God, yes,
more of
I would even agree to that.
Doug and I can take a look at the letter and make
Yes.
sure we have language that shows we're willing to explore, but we're not gonna commit to anything and then bring that back to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Super.
We'll wait to hear back from you guys.
Sounds good, thank you.
Josh.
Oh, got it.
Sorry, just to piggyback on this, STA has reached out requesting a letter of support for the grant they're pursuing for the new training facility on Mission. And I didn't want to sign it without the commissioners saying that they supported that grant ask. We don't see it as a competing grant to anything of us, but wanted to make sure the commissioners had optics on that, and if you wanted me to sign that and send it up.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yep. All right.
Good. Last reminder, don't forget, western portion of that property is highly contaminated.
Well, on that note.
Get a discount. Get a big discount.
Just exploring.
Okay,
Thank you.
next up, Jamie Hayes, Senior Project Manager, Public Works.
Railroad.
So we got a FIMSIP
Can I take a look at this?
Civ Award.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay.
Since we have a PowerPoint that will help guide the conversation. So I'm here to inform you about an award we received from applying from the 2024 Freight Mobility Strategic Investment Board, otherwise known as FMCIB. Yep. If you're not familiar with the FMCIB program, it's a funding mechanism to improve strategic freight corridors, improve economic development, and bolster Washington as a leader in international trade. Next slide. As I said, in spring of 2024, we applied for multiple projects, one being Craig Road, the other one, the Harvard Road grade separation, and then Argonne Road corridor. We asked for $3.9 million and we were awarded $3.9 million. And this is going to go towards the design and right of way of the Argonne corridor. It's important to note that in 2022, we received $300,000 for a planning study from the NHFP, which is just showing other grantor investment in the project with a $47,000 county match. And like I said, this is design and right of way only. The project spans from the Spokane River to Bigelow Gulch, which is just shy of 2.5 miles long. With the long-term project goals of intersection improvements, active transportation improvements, filling in gaps with the overall goal of improving the corridor operations, safety, capacity, and level of service. If you're not familiar with Argonne Corridor, it is just north of the city of Millwood and basically terminating at Bigelow Gulch, which I'm pretty sure everyone's familiar with Bigelow Gulch. And then moving on to the next slide, I wanted to show you just a general overall concept of what we're working on. This is a pretty active area. You can see that we have identified the intersection improvements that we are currently in a planning study for, which should be wrapped up in about 6 to 8 weeks with a final alternative for the intersection and some active transportation improvements for the Centennial Trail. The pink line showing road reconstruction. It's not brought down to the river just because there's a lot going on right there. And then the preferred alternative to that planning study is in the dark purple, which, like I said, this is not concluded yet, and we will have more information about the preferred design for the intersection as well as the continuation of the Centennial Trail. If you're not familiar with that, Centennial Trail kind of terminates at Boulder Beach. It kind of shoves people out to a shoulder of the road for about approximately 2 miles, making them cross over Argonne Road. Argonne Road is a T1 freight corridor, really, really busy commuting route. And so we're trying to find better options for people crossing at this location.
Yes, absolutely. So the purple route that you said that's on there, is that drop down really south then of Argonne?
Well, what
Or not Argonne?
What
Yeah.
the consultant is showing is that there's options there that they have not finalized yet. So we have about another 6 to 8 weeks before we're gonna get that final report. You can see it's, and I know that these maps are hard to see, but I still think that they're helpful. That, you know, we have it heading east on Upriver Drive.
Right.
We have it heading down Marengo and Marietta. I believe it's Marietta, and then crossing above, below, like, you know, like we're still trying to figure out how we're gonna cross Argonne at this point. So that's kind of what that is showing, is that we've kind of like narrowed down some preferred alternatives and we're gonna get to the final preferred alternative. Through the 2024 Safe Streets for All funding that we received, Upriver Drive was identified as a high injury network, and so it's kind of important that we make informed decisions about how we proceed with that.
If it was easy, we would have figured it out. before.
It's so the truth, it's a really complicated
It's
area.
very
I appreciate that you
difficult.
understand that, that's great. For this design and right-of-way acquisition, this should be completed by the end of 2027, with a total project cost of $4.3 million, including that $300 from the NHFP, the $47,000 county match, and the $3.9 million award we received.
How much, if any, impact will the recent decision for Inland Paper have on this project in terms of truck traffic reduction or other congestion issues?
That's a good question. And I think that that's something that we don't have a traffic impact analysis yet because we don't have a binding site plan yet. So what we have shown is that there's interest in the land with no other information yet to come. So we don't know when that will be developed, if and when. But with that, there's gonna be, you know, the whole process will follow that with a traffic impact, you know, ingress, egress, emergency services, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think we could advance to the next slide, which is, do you have any additional questions for me? Okay. Well, that's a wrap, and thank you very much for your time.
You.
Have a great day.
You too. All right, Amy Sumner, Water Resources Manager. A couple of items here, the VSP program.
Great.
So, good morning. I have two items that are related for you today. First of all, Amy Sumner, Spokane County Water Resources Manager. I have with me some folks from the Conservation District, Jade McKean and Jacob Taylor, and they're gonna join me in this presentation. So the two items that we have are for the Voluntary Stewardship Program, or the VSP. This first item is for a contract with the Conservation District to continue implementing the VSP program for the next biennium. And then the second item will be the state contract with the State Conservation Commission, and that provides the funding for the VSP program. So I just wanted to remind folks what the VSP does. It is an alternate approach for the compliance with the Growth Management Act. It allows us, instead of regulating critical areas with agricultural landowners through our critical areas ordinance, it provides a voluntary way of them complying. It utilizes incentive-based approach so that they can implement protection measures on their farms without having to be regulated to do so. There is a goal of no net loss or functions of values for our in agricultural lands. And it also supports agricultural viability, making sure that farmers can still continue to farm their property. Next slide, please. The VSP history in Spokane County, the program itself was started by the state in 2011, and that's when the Board of County Commissioners at the time elected to incorporate all of Spokane County into the VSP program. 2015 is when we first got those state funds for implementation from the Washington State Conservation Commission. And then in 2016 was our first biennium contracts with both the state and the Conservation District acting as our agents. So this will be the sixth bienniums contracts for the county. Next slide, please. And so Jacob and Jade are going to provide a brief update on what they have been working on at the Conservation District through the VSP program to kind of give you an idea of what these funds work towards.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. It's been about a year since the last time we came and talked to you, so I just have a brief update on the program and what we've been up to the last year or so. And I'll start just by kind of reiterating what Amy said, that the voluntary stewardship program really benefits Spokane County by reducing that regulatory pressure on the agricultural community under that alternative pathway under the Growth Management Act, which in turn eases the workload on county planning staff. It also provides that additional state funding that allows us to support voluntary conservation on ag land, build and maintain trust with landowners, and monitor those critical areas and the functions and values they provide to our community. And these efforts also align with the broader watershed planning and TMDL goals, Spokane River watershed. Last year when I spoke to you, I think I mentioned that agricultural viability has been kind of a growing focus within the VSP community across the state and here in Spokane County. And here we've, in the last year, continued to address challenges facing Spokane County producers, particularly the impacts of growth and development on agricultural land has been kind of a topic of concern in our work group. We've been actively participating on the technical advisory committee for the rural land section comprehensive plan update, trying to represent those agricultural interests process. We also recently conducted a community survey working with WSU, trying to learn how much our community understands about agriculture in our region in general, the challenges producers are facing, and how much public support there is for the agricultural community here, which we've actually found pretty overwhelming support from the community for agriculture and agriculture. So we hope that information can kind of be plugged back into that comprehensive planning process and inform future rural land use policy. Our monitoring program was approved by this Conservation Commission around this time last year. So we're kind of in the implementation phase of that. That has included some stream health surveys looking at benthic macroinvertebrate populations, as well as the ongoing riparian modeling projects that will continue into the next biennium. And these efforts are designed to demonstrate that voluntary incentive-based conservation can protect critical areas while also keeping agricultural land and production monitoring. So far, the data supports that this approach is working, although there's obviously more work to do as we move forward and learn.
We also have 2 reports upcoming. Our biennial report is due in August of this year, and this report provides the county and our VSP work group a chance to update the public and also the state technical panel on VSP implementation progress made during this last biennium. And so Jacob and I have been working on this report, and we will be taking that to our work group on August 14th for approval. The second report is our 10-year report. This is the first time our county has done a 10-year report for the VSP program. And that is due in the spring of 2026. That report is used by the State Conservation Commission to determine if our county is meeting VSP work group goals and benchmarks. And they will host a public meeting review of this report in August of 2026. Followed by a decision in October on whether or not this program remains a viable option and strategy under the Growth Management Act for our county. The commission has put together a new streamlined template for this report, so this has been updated, and Jacob and I will begin that reporting process this fall. Our last update is regarding our work roster. So we are trying to maintain a balanced stakeholder representation on the work group. That remains a priority for us. One work group member, Casey Flanagan, who's from the Spokane tribe, stepped down last year. We have nominated a new member, Alex Keys Cohen, who represents the farming community through her work with the Conservation District in our production agriculture department, and also through the biofarming network. We are actively engaging with the local tribe to bring in another representative in the work group from a tribe perspective as well.
So the board actually does have approval authority over who is on the work group, but we want to get the 2 newest members together before we bring that for approval. So we're hoping to do that this fall, just to update you on that action. So the requested action I'm asking of you today is to authorize and execute the interagency agreement that we have with the Spokane Conservation District to allow them to continue operating as our agent for the VSP program. And then the next item related to this is the state contract that we have with the Conservation Commission, State Conservation Commission, and that provides the funding for the VSP program. Very briefly, the funding did increase this biennium. It was $240,000 last biennium, and this biennium it is $290,000. So that gives the Conservation District a little bit more money to work with if we approve both of these actions. And if we decide not to move forward with this, then there will be some discussions about how to incorporate actions through the GMA update with the comp plan for critical areas ordinances. So that's just giving a perspective on how this program kind of keeps us from going that regulatory route. And I'll take any questions if there are.
Mr. French?
So do you guys keep track of how many farmers or producers have gotten out of the business in the last couple of years?
Was that part of your?
We track the USDA ag census data. Which we've actually seen kind of about, I guess, more what we've looked at is land and production. And then we break it up into different categories of size of farms. But we've actually seen kind of a bounce back up last ag census data.
What size?
In all three sizes, we break into mid, small, medium, and large farms. And the large farms are still getting bigger. The mid and small farms kind of dipped over the last 10 or 15 years, and then they've rebounded a little bit.
Is that statewide or is that in the county?
That's in the county. I think it kind of tracks with statewide trends as well. We've also looked at some assessors data about with looking at subdivisions and developments, and we've seen a lot of that, especially up north.
So does that include the impact of PFAS on the West Plains, the ag lands out there?
We haven't really looked into the effect of PFAS on agriculture in the West Plains.
Because I've talked to a number of farmers that cannot farm anymore because their product was being irrigated with well water out of that's contaminated with PFAS. So they're now looking at having to sell their land and or discontinue their operation.
Okay, I have not been in contact with.
Okay.
Commissioner
Well, another. So I'm struck by the article in the newspaper this morning that talked about how DNR had and Fern had terminated that agreement, which would have brought 1,000 houses into the market, and a market that's clearly depressed in terms of housing. And the goal to try and not consume ag land for development, and at the same time, we've got 100,000 new residents in the next 20 years that are going to be looking for a home. And the highest price in a home, other than the construction, is land cost. And so as you look at different operations and the balance, you keep on talking about how and I was part of the group that approved the voluntary program and bringing that to the county. But how do you strike the balance between the needs for housing and the needs for ag land, and where do we grow at? How do we grow?
That's been a big conversation with the work group. And one of our work group members is a farmer, Chris Eckhart, up in the Deer Park area. And that's his biggest concern in that area is element encroachment that's fragmenting farmland. And his big argument whenever I talk to him is he doesn't want to stop new housing from being in, and he understands that housing. But we don't have a solution, but finding that balance of maybe incentivizing cluster type housing developments, or figuring out how we can develop smartly in rural areas to preserve it, while also allow to have rural house in the country.
I appreciate the buzzwords. The reality is that we already allow for small lot developments. We already allow for a higher density, and yet still being challenged with availability of land. I mean, just last week, we had regional experts in the housing industry talk about how we've constrained the availability to the point to where our relief valve is Kootenai County. So, we're sending wealth across the state line as opposed to having it stay here. So it's just part of the challenge. It's gonna be part of an ongoing conversation here in the next year as to where that balance is, but right now, all we have are people that say no, but don't have any solutions. It's not a solution.
And I would just quickly add that, like Jacob had said, he's participating in the rural plans technical advisory committee for the comp planning, and this is kind of a planning issue, so I'm assuming something will come out of that whole process, but Jacob is participating as a technical advisor. I myself am also sitting on both the rural lands and the climate change technical advisory committee, so we're trying to help inform some of those discussions. And at our level, that's, I think, the best that we could do, because that planning process is where some of those solutions will hopefully come from.
Commissioner Waldron? did you raise
Oh,
your hand?
so I was just gonna ask, glad that the state gave us some more funding, because I'm assuming costs are going up to work with, this voluntary stewardship program. How do you prioritize where you work throughout the county? Because there are different pockets of, right? There's different agricultural areas and there's a lot of different areas. So how do you guys usually prioritize your work with farmers? I know the Latah watershed is a high priority where there's a lot of sedimentation and, getting in and impacting the quality of the creek and then the Spokane River. But just wondering, you have like 5 top priority areas you work with.
Again, kind of finding that balance, but the Hangman watershed is obviously a priority, and the Little Spokane watershed has been a priority. Those are the 2 big agricultural watersheds too. Honestly, we haven't put a ton of focus on the West Plains, although we have some, and we've worked with some of the ranching community out there. But it's kind of finding that balance, and the issues are different in different areas too. Like you said, it's sedimentation, development, and livestock issues are one problem.
It's really driven by like the water quality standards in those 2 watersheds. Okay.
Commissioner Jordan?
You mentioned that the data shows that the voluntary program is working. What do you look to as kind of the key data measures?
Well, there's the big projects we've done have been some of the riparian and wetland modeling projects, and so we did a Landsat modeling exercise last biennium. Wetland area on agricultural lands and how that's changed over time since Landsat started in the 1980s. We actually saw a general increase that kind of tracked with precipitation trends too. Then we compared that to ag land versus non-ag. And so we didn't see any major differences between ag land and non-ag land. We saw a general increasing wetland sizes. So that's just one of the projects we've done, and one of the critical areas that we're working on. We did a similar project with riparian vegetation and found similar results. There are no significant decline. The goal is no net loss. And metrics we've looked at, we haven't seen net loss. The other big benchmark we track. is, Conservation practices based. Goals and benchmarks. And implementation of conservation practices in riparian buffers, livestock. On those. We use all NRCS standards, so practices that have been documented to water quality issues. Functions of those. Outpaced our goals. In some cases, by so there's kind of the implementation monitoring, and then there's the effects monitoring and looking at how it's changing over time, and that's where we have definitely room to grow. Modeling work and expanding that into some of the other areas that we haven't touched on. And getting into more in-depth questions on not just the quantity or area, but also the functions of that. So be working.
Hey, I was trying to look on your website to see who's on the work group roster. I can't actually find the members of the VSP board or the work group. Is that something you can send to us?
Yeah.
So we can, and kind of what, what group or organization they represent?
Yeah, we can, I think that should be.
It should be, it's nested in kind of a weird spot, I think. The VSP work page is pretty long, and towards the bottom, there are a few links to various documents, and there should be a roster list in there. Although I'm not certain it's the most updated.
Okay.
So we can look at that, and then also, yeah, send one out as well.
Okay. All right, any other questions? No? Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. All right, and I've been asked if we can, we're gonna jump to the judge here with us, Judge Smith. I know I'm sure you have to get back to a courtroom, so we're gonna let you go right now, real quick, and then we'll jump back to Kyle.
All right, terrific. Well, first of all, I think I'm coming to the board today with great news. For a change, we've got money. And so this, what I'm presenting today is just, I'm asking the board to ratify several grants that we've received. We've been very fortunate over the last 4 years to receive funding from both the Washington Traffic Safety Commission as well as the Administrative Office of the Court. Today, or this year, our total funding was in the neighborhood of $425,000, which is less than it has been over the years, but with the budget constraints, we're still thrilled to get that amount. It's broken up between two different grants. The first one, the Washington Traffic Safety, and the $208,000 that we received from them is actually split over 2 years. So we get $104,000 per year from Washington Traffic Safety. The AOC grant is a total of $219,000. That's annual. That comes to us every year. We have on the AOC side, let me just kind of go through some of the cost categories because I think those are important for folks to understand. Probably the biggest thing that we were able to negotiate with AOC this year was a readjustment of some of the line items to put a little bit more money into the personnel costs, which has allowed us $110,000 to put toward our probation officers in our DUI therapeutic court. That's been a great relief from a budget perspective. And so that's been really great. Treatment services is $70,000. That is a category, a line item in which we assist folks in getting treatment if they can't afford treatment, if insurance can't procure insurance for them. It allows us to defray some of that cost. It also helps defray some of the cost of testing, UAs primarily. We also use some of those funds for electronic home monitoring and other types of monitoring that we would use. Scram, for example, which is a ankle bracelet that monitors alcohol via the skin. And then recovery supports is another big section. We use that for it's an interesting category. So, you know, the folks that come into our therapeutic courts often have a lot of barriers to stay in our court. Maybe transportation, it may be housing, etc. And to the extent that we can assist them short-term in some of those issues, we come alongside and help them. Finally, team training and travel. For therapeutic courts, it's really critical for the team to be well-trained. And so there's several opportunities that we have for training. One is on a national level with the NADCP conference that's held, All Rise conference that's held every year. We take as many team members as we possibly can to that. For those who can't go to that training, we take them to it. We have a kind of a statewide training that is also really good. And so for those who can't go to the national training, we take them to the state training. So those are the main categories for our AOC grant. For the Washington Traffic Safety Grant, pretty much a large, percentage of those funds go towards testing. UA testing is the gold standard for compliance in DUI courts, and it's not cheap. It's $30-$35 a pop for each one of those tests. Most of our participants were testing 8 times a month, so that adds up pretty quick. And so 104,000 goes mostly towards those kinds of expenses and costs. We also have some discretion to use those funds for transportation, treatment, and other things as well. But primarily, those funds go towards testing in order to make sure that folks are compliant. So that's the 2 grants that we have. I would respectfully ask the board to ratify those 2 grants, and happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Any questions? Commissioner Jordan?
For the treatment piece, I assume you said insurance, is that kind of the payer of first resort?
Right. So a lot of folks come into our court and they don't have any insurance at all. And so our case managers work with them to try to get insurance. And to the extent that they can get insurance and it'll cover it, great. For those who kind of fall in between, maybe they don't qualify for state assistance, etc. We'll come alongside and at least help defray some of those costs. But primarily we're working with them trying to get insurance coverage.
So that's something the staff works with the
Correct.
client on actively. Is it usually a pretty quick process? Because I would assume the timeliness of getting them in there is pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, getting somebody, from the time that they are entered into our court to engaging in treatment is critical. And we try to get folks engaged in treatment within a 30-day period. We're pretty successful at that. We've got some connections. When you have case managers who've been around a while, they have connections and they're able to, kind of facilitate those things a little quicker than usual. So our goal is to get folks engaged within 30 days. If we have to work on procuring insurance for them, and our case managers have been pretty successful with that.
And I assume insurance doesn't cover the testing. Hence the
Correct.
state funding pays for that.
Correct.
It's kind of a compliance piece for the courts.
That's right.
And then who does the state training?
So AOC has a therapeutic court department. And it's a wonderful group of professionals who have a lot of experience on a very high level and on a national level. And they are the ones who put on the training for the state.
Thank you.
It's obviously a lot less cost. It's a lot more cost effective to do the state one if we can, because it's more local. We're not flying somewhere, Florida or Southern California or DC, where those are where the meetings are often held. So it's a lot more cost effective to have it at the state level. They do a really good job.
So thanks, Judge. You said that you negotiated with them over the probation officer. And so does that free up some general funds if we can use these dollars to pay for that probation officer?
It does, to the extent that, probation is an enterprise fund. There are some.
Oh, right.
And I don't understand all the financial, mechanics of it, because I know that some of our probation officers are funded out of the general fund. Some are funded out of the enterprise fund within probation, for probation fees, etc. So I'm not sure. So our 2 of our probation officers, though, we're paying for out of those personnel costs, and AOC has allowed us to do that.
Oh, so two out
Two
of
of them,
the. Okay.
yeah. My guess is that it probably is a general fund issue, those positions I think are probably paid out of the general fund versus the enterprise fund as it relates to the two people who are on our DUI therapeutic court. Although I don't know that for certain, but that's my understanding.
Well, thanks for working with them to get the funding for those, because it's important to be able to use the funding for as many things that we can to defray those other, the other funds we have here at the county.
Yeah, you're welcome. And probation plays a huge role in the effectiveness of our therapeutic courts, especially our DUI court, where they're very heavily supervised and they're meeting with probation officers, every week or every other week. So probation is a huge critical component of our success in our DUI therapy. So.
Thanks.
You had referenced, I think you called them the Scram bracelets, and then you referenced the testing. The urine tests that these dollars help offset those costs. Does that cover all of those costs, or is that also supplemented with additional dollars, or does this cover this?
It pretty much covers all of our EHM and Scram and UA testing. Yeah.
Okay.
Between the two grants, we're able to pretty much cover all that cost.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is again a huge barrier to folks coming into our court. They just don't, if a single mom is trying to figure out, am I gonna, pay $320 a month for UA testing, or am I gonna buy, groceries for my kids? I mean, it's a real significant issue, and it's very helpful for folks in our court.
All right, any other questions? All right,
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Kyle, we'll throw it back over to you. Got some property sale.
Thank you, commissioners. Coming to you for some properties for your consideration, and to get some direction on a little over half a dozen pieces of property that are currently owned in 3 different funds. And see if you would like us to proceed with getting these properties surplus and out to auction. Doing this has several touches with the board, including a consent item on the ledge agenda to notice the intention to sell and do our public hearing, and then actually take action the week following that. We would then get it out on Gov Deals for auction. And if it does not sell, we still offer it over the counter for the minimum bid. That's kind of the process for the properties should you wish to move forward on any one of them. Slide 1. So this is owned Fund 501. That's ENR Road. It's kind of a sister to the road fund that also owns all of our pit sites. So we have 2 pit sites for your consideration. Just a little 1 acre over off of Wood Road. This was actually previously surplus, so we'd like to go back out again and see if we can't get this one off the books and get a little revenue for it.
Does the neighbor have any interest in it, or is it gonna go to general auction or something?
We will certainly notify the neighbor. We hope they'll bid on it. But they haven't approached us for a direct sale. This is the Rock Lake School pit out off of Williams Lake Road. It's almost 2 acres. The low appraisal numbers because there's really no access or utilities or nothing that you'd want.
Is there any road access to it either?
We got an easement.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's rugged. So those are the 2 properties out of 501. So yeah, our pits are in the 501 funds. Back in that. So next slide, Ron. Oh, there's just a picture of the
Quick question. 501 is road fund.
it's like the sister to the road fund. It's where all the vehicles and pits are. It's kind of like the assets of 110. Oh, is there a better way I should describe it? Yeah, the equipment revolving fund, it's all of our heavy equipment, all of our light trucks, all of our materials, our bids, all reside in 501, but it's really married to 110, 95% of it. I'm sorry, the road. Yes, yeah, sorry.
Thanks.
We're statutorily.
Everything. Is it all funded out of the road fund?
Yeah,
It's
essentially
equipment or thing, or assets held are essentially funded by the road fund revenue source. Yeah, okay.
Okay, this is a general fund property. This is up on Rim Rock, Indian Bluff Lane. It's 40 acres. It could be divided into tangents. It's got some elevation changes. It's got some fun history. This was acquired as a piece of tax title property many moons ago, and is also was considered for a pit site. And I think before my time was determined, we did not actually want to further use it as a pit site. So it is property that we have available, or that the general fund has available, should you choose to surplus it and get a nice chunk of change if it goes.
Isn't this the property that is also got
It's,
an attorney involved with it?
yes,
Didn't someone put a gate up and block our
Yes.
access?
Yeah.
yes.
It would be nice if they would just buy it.
But he's not gonna buy it if he can use it and we can't kick him off.
Somebody else can buy it.
Do have interest from other parties that want to buy it.
It's view lots, it's nice.
Good piece of property.
I don't know how the utilities are gonna go, but that's for somebody else. Next slide on. So there's kind of that view corridor you got.
Wow. Don't they make, they've got a cap for septic systems too, don't they? You can just cap it at the property line.
Yeah. It's,
They
we've
glue
got,
on.
Huh?
They glue on.
Yeah, yeah. Just saying, okay.
So this was, now we're, this is this is the old Scope House. This was surplus last year. This was, previously attempted to sell, at $399. We did not get any qualifying bids. So, we'd like to have a discussion. Would that be following this meeting? Okay, executive session on the potential minimum bid on this property.
Where did we get the 399 from?
See appraised, but
Need some work.
Yeah, needs a lot of work.
yeah,
I think 399 would have assumed that it was move-in ready.
Yeah.
Maybe Habitat for Humanity.
I don't even think they would want it.
They said they would previously, but it depends on the price of.
399.
The only thing that doesn't need upgrading is the address.
So if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see a elevation of it. And again, this one was one of the ones previous to surplus, as is this one here. This is now a road fund property. That's the Appleway and Dishman, the two lots. We tried to sell it last year at $599. We did not get that. It also didn't allow us to sell it over the counter the way we just didn't include that in the resolution. So we would like to be able to do that, and we would suggest reducing the minimum sale price to 5.
Do we allow for access onto the property off of either Appleway or Dishman? I've heard
that
that-
way, it would need to be negotiated as part of the land development. But
Yeah.
yes, presumably they would get at least one access off of Appleway.
Yeah, because you've got quite a bit of elevation change on that property and stuff to get access on to.
Yeah, there's a lot of swales. We bought it back when we had the valley to put swales on it.
Yeah.
Accommodate the drainage from Appleway, so that's why we have it, and those swales are still there. We've given an easement to the valley for them. We're working on that. It would, anyway, not to get too far into the weeds, but the drainage needs to be accommodated along the north property line. Reasonably, an owner could probably reconfigure it for an access and modify the drainage, but that would be a conversation with the valley.
How big is this piece?
It is 71,217 square feet.
Happy.
It's a good piece of land, even with the drainage, it's 1.6 feet. Not even going on traffic.
It seems large. I've driven by it.
It's a good,
Tons of times.
it's a good site.
Yeah.
Great sign location.
Could be a good affordable housing location. So,
Behind the sign.
maybe that could be part of the deal.
Signs and trains.
This
Picture of the
So-
property.
So this property, there wasn't any. I'm very surprised.
We've had offers on this property before we went to auction. But when it did go to auction, we did not get bids that met our minimum.
Development standpoint, it's very awkward to get access to.
It's kind of in between all those, yeah. But I mean, it has a lot of access. Maybe too many access.
It's got a lot of frontage.
Yeah, think of how many cars
Frontage
drive
does
by.
not mean access.
Be perfect for like a fast food restaurant. So, where is McDonald's in this discussion?
So this is again, just on the road fund here. This is at University and Eighth. This was a single family home lot that was purchased for the build out of University Road. It is a buildable lot. And was appraised at 102,000. And there's a picture, I believe, on the next slide.
And this is road fund.
Yes.
Has it got sewer and water access at that property?
Right.
It's here, yes.
It does, okay.
Then this is
What's the large building to the north of that?
could you go back?
North of
Something big
Up.
there.
Oh, yeah, it looks like a apartment building or business.
sorry, I don't
Not
know.
sure.
I'm just curious as to what your neighbor is. It's awful close to the property line.
You've got a lot. And then we have this little tiny lot, but it is a legal lot somehow. Just a utility box and a little encroachment on it. And this one was appraised at $19,000. This is right there. Again, University and Ninth purchased for the road, University Road project.
So if we were to fence that property, there'd be no parking for the house next to it.
Yes.
Just an idea.
That property owner is interested, but if not, we'll see if we get some other interest.
That property to the north that Commissioner French was asking appears to be like townhomes. Yeah, like duplexes,
Oh, okay.
a line of the duplexes. Yeah,
So you'd have a nice neighbor.
yeah, I mean, it's residential, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's bumps up to residential, so that's good.
Well, is there one more slide or are we? Sir. Sure. So if the board is not concerned with any particular piece on this list, we will start moving all the pieces forward. There'll be several more touches as we do ledge session, the public hearing, and then consent item following the public hearing, and then try to get some property off the book and some dollars in the accounts.
Everybody good with that?
I continue to ask that we consider an affordable housing surplus properties ordinance that might allow us to have some more options that increase housing supply. And so that's still something to consider as it relates to general fund properties, but otherwise, if there's not a desire to do that, then we can move forward.
All right. Go forward and do good things, guys.
Maybe three.
Okay, that brings us to George.
There we go.
There's George.
It's like that.
Right, update on the CDBG disaster relief dollars.
Yeah, so thanks for having us. What we want to do is just give you a general update on where we're at with the disaster recovery grant. Aiden's got a presentation that he's put together. He'll talk a little bit about some of the phases. I think the most important thing that as we've communicated with the communities in Medical Lake as well as up in Elk, is that we're still very early in this process. No money has been allocated to any individual project. We have to start out with identifying approximately where we think the funds will go based off of the needs assessment. And that's really driven by the FEMA and Small Business Administration data that we've been provided as part of this grant. So we've heard from several folks reaching out that think that one community is getting all the money, and then several folks reach out that think that the other community is getting all the money. So there's, anytime you're talking about a lot of money and a disaster situation, there's going to be a lot of emotional connections to it, and we recognize that. And we've been doing the best that we can to help folks out and understand really where we're coming from. So go ahead and let Aiden get going, and then we've got some additional supporting documents as we go through the conversation.
Well, thank you, George, for that. First and foremost, I want to say that this is version 1 of our action plan, and I highlighted that in bold because there's going to be many iterations. Some people across the nation have upwards of 50 amendments to their action plan throughout the course of their 6-year process. This is just kind of our initial foot in the door for HUD. So the reason why we're coming to you today is that version 1 is officially complete. We held a public comment period, and that public comment period was 30 days approximately and ended yesterday. So all of those public comments will be included in the final draft that will be ready for the legislative amendment, which we will be requesting approval from the board next week. And that process is being submitted through Civic Clerk later this afternoon. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a quick little infographic on what the grant life cycle is. So the We Are Here on the far left is the about 80 to 90% of phase 1, which is the action plan. That's kind of going through that public comment process, identifying where some of the funds are going to go. Again, none of those funds have been allocated. We don't have any dollars that have actually been sent to the county. This is essentially just an overall plan that HUD requires us to have within, I believe, 90 days of the original notice. That original notice was given an extended deadline because the federal government and I believe a 30 or 60-day delay on that, just providing some clarifying information through a subsequent amendment. But effectively, we need to submit our plan before the end of July to meet those reporting requirements, or else we'll have to ask for an extension. So the HUD approval is kind of that first foot in the door, trying to get the keys to this $44 million car. So that is mostly just to comply with HUD regulations, get in line with some of the data that they have provided, recognizing that a lot of that data is upwards of 2 years old now. So a lot of that data will need to be revisited and readjusted through subsequent amendments in the future. After we submit to HUD, they will be on the clock for their review and approval. We have already talked to our technical assistance people, and they have given us the green light and said it looks pretty good. Minor changes here and there, but that can be done through minor amendment processes. But then that leads us into phase 2, which is the financial certification process. That's going to actually be identifying activities and allocations for these projects. George and I and the rest of the team have identified a request for proposal and a request for inquiry, an RFP and an RFI that will likely go out mid to late fall, kind of looking for case managers, certain projects that we want to be contracting with, and starting that process where we will go back through many more amendments in the actual plan for that process of actual financial allocations. And that goes into the implementation of phase 3, which we will create policies and procedures, actually contract with a lot of those local organizations. Those can be nonprofits, for-profits, religious organizations, et cetera. Can also be city jurisdictions as well. Lots of people that we could partners that we could utilize in implementing a lot of these community resources. That phase 2 and phase 3 will kind of just cycle through once we actually have a physical a plan that is a foundation to work off of. So we will have multiple amendments just kind of going through it and allocating, deallocating, and obligating different resources. Nothing is set in stone at this point. And if we find that we either overshot or undershot in some of our estimates, we can reallocate easily to different categories for a lot of those dollar amounts. Next slide, please.
Before you go on, Ron, I just wanted to acknowledge the document that I handed out. That's just a snip from the Federal Registry for this grant. And within that, you can see I've highlighted phase 1, 2, and 3. We are asking for legislative action to complete under phase 1, item B. So we are very early in this process. You can see that we don't even get the grant execution from HUD until we're in phase 2, item E. So there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done before we get those funds, and we certainly cannot allocate funds until we know until we have a contract with HUD. So just wanted to point that out. We've been doing a lot of work. We've made a lot of progress, but we still got a very long way to go.
Can I pause you? So 1A3 is grantee. You have a 30-day public comment period, right? Then grantee responds to public comments and incorporates the feedback into the action plan. So are you going to describe kind of what level of public comment came back and how that has informed this?
Yeah, so there is a section in the actual action plan that it iterates the public comments received and the responses to each of those public comments. Our intention is that later today, as we have officially closed our public comment period, that we will have uploaded in Civic Clerk for the legislative action, the responses to all of those public comments.
Did you receive a good number of them?
We did, yes. We probably, gosh, I don't know, in total, we're probably around 20 comments.
And how was the word put out about the public comment period and how that was to be sent in? Was there like a meeting or was it?
Yeah, so we met with the advisory committee in June, had a hearing there. Then we met with the advisory committee again just last Thursday. We also posted
the HCD advisory committee.
Yes. We also posted in the spokesman that the public comment period was there. We've used our website and other means. We have a distribution list from our stakeholder engagements that we reach out to folks through. So yeah, a variety of different ways.
So for the spokesman notice, did that identify a specific date to come to something or
We did
way to
not,
send it in?
so last Thursday's meeting was an official public hearing for members of the public to come in and make any public comments. I believe we only had 2 official public comments during that meeting, but the 30-day public comment period was posted in compliance with our citizen participation plan to submit any public comments in person or in writing to HCDC. Or HCDC.
So that's a 2-week prior to meeting notice that we were required just to be able to check some boxes with that.
And those of you following along, the presentation in our packet is different. George sent us an updated version of this PowerPoint this morning. So.
Yeah, I do want to thank you for taking the time to brief Commissioner Kearns and I separately on this since it impacts our districts, and knowing that we are very, very preliminary in this process and there's nothing cut in stone yet is helpful because that means there's still a lot of work to be done to get it right. And so but I appreciate the education. Thanks.
Next slide, please, Ron. So effectively, the action plan that we have created, that first version, is the county's application to HUD. The dollars are technically appropriated, federally appropriated to the county, but we do not unlock it until we actually submit the plan, which effectively unlocks it after the subsequent B, C, and D, and E processes on that phase one action plan in front of you. So all of these dollars, I want to reiterate, are to facilitate long-term recovery for the survivors of the Oregon and Gray Road fires. These dollars are not for general fund or anything other than recovery efforts. Additionally, I also want to reiterate, we do not have that money, but we're in the process. The action plan is also needing to identify the quote unmet need, end quote. That is defined by HUD as a very specific what that unmet need is, rather than what we may colloquially use that term for. The unmet need will vary as more information becomes available, as we get more data and updates the information that we have. Again, this will be a living document that will have multiple amendments throughout this process. Next slide, please. So some of the criteria that I want to iterate as well is that 80% of these funds must be spent in Spokane County. That is the regulatory requirement from HUD. It is our intent that 100% of these funds are utilized within Spokane County, with specific interest on the Medical Lake and Elk areas. There are some possibilities where we could, for instance, utilize a housing project, say in Deer Park, for the benefit of survivors from the Elk area, because we could use all these funds wherever in Spokane County, but our particular interest is those areas where the survivors of those fires were.
And I want to provide clarity because both Aiden and I have said that in meetings, and I think that that's caused some concern when we say all of Spokane County, that the money is going to go elsewhere. It will only go within Spokane County to folks that were impacted directly from the fires. So the example that Aiden gives, if I lost my home, I live in Elk, and I do not want to go back to Elk, but I want to go to Deer Park because I got family there and I've got trauma from living out there. Can you help me rebuild a house or buy a house in Deer Park? Yes, that's an example of how this within Spokane County, how that works. So in some instances throughout the country where they have very defined what they call area of most impacted and distressed area, where it's just within a zip code or something, when you think about a tornado or something like that, we have the ability to be able to do a lot more assistance throughout Spokane County and customize those individuals.
So let's say somebody lost their home and they lived in Elk, but they wanted to rebuild in Ferry County. Could they do that?
I think that's an area where we'll work with our HUD reps to determine what exceptions may be available there. So there are some clauses within there that say that you can go outside of your defined area. But we definitely want to work with our HUD rep for any specific situation like that.
Okay. I just had a question about, in the PowerPoint presentation, you have these different tables. Are those little snippets from the action plan that you're building?
They are.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Another criteria that I want to point out is at least 70% of these funds must benefit low and moderate income persons. Those are defined by HUD as well. To be low and moderate income, you have to make 80% or less area median income. So the benefit of this grant is for those for struggling and distressed individuals. Did you have a question?
Yeah, at what time, at what point do you need to identify that you're at that threshold? For instance, I could have been making a couple $100,000 before the fire, and then after the fire, my business was an in-home business, which I wasn't able to reactivate and stuff, and I've been impacted. My income's going to drop. At what point is your income measured to see whether you qualify or not?
I think we'll show a model here in a bit, that shows kind of at least systematically how we're gonna go about making those determinations. But effectively, it's gonna be case by case how we look at it, in a situation where someone's, had an example like that. Then I think that's someone that we likely would be able to help, because it would be the impact and direct result of the fire. So as long as we're able to document it and show it, then I think that that individual in that scenario would be able to receive assistance.
Other HUD statutory caps that I want to point out, no more than 15% can be utilized for public services or planning. A maximum of 5% for administration, then at least 15% needs to be used for mitigation activities. Those mitigation activities are defined as wildfire prevention or subsequent other mitigation activities similar to that. Next slide, please.
And Aiden, for sake of time, if we could skip over these two slides, and then get into kind of the meat and potatoes of that. I think that would be valuable. If anyone has any questions on those more detailed slides, we're happy to have a conversation with you, but want to make sure that we get to these points here.
So again, as we go through these slides, I want to iterate that these are just initial estimates based off of the data that we have. Nothing is set in stone and everything is likely subject to change, but our initial process is that our two priorities for at least our department is that housing and slash pile removal were the highest identified needs from the communities. So we have allocated resources accordingly, where we have put about $19.5 million into new construction, about $2.5 million into rehabilitation. And one thing that you'll see consistently throughout each of these programs is that we are meeting that statutory requirement of 70% of all these funds meeting those LMI benefits. Again, we'll have to run some numbers when we actually get some programs, but those may change just depending on the types of persons that are applying for these funds. Next slide, please. The other projects that we have are infrastructure programs, which is property cleanup and repair. There's a lot of debris still left on some of these properties that individuals do not have the resources available to them to clear a lot of that debris. Additionally, water improvements and general infrastructure, just kind of general funds for these programs to meet some of those unmet needs, but nothing identified solidly at this point in time. Next slide, please. For economic revitalization, we have a fencing repair replacement. These are specific towards businesses. And then additionally, we have business loan reimbursement for individuals needing some additional assistance. SBA data showcase that there may be some businesses needing some additional resources, but were denied their claims for whatever reason through SBA loan data. So we may have an additional program to relook at some of that eligibility cases. Next slide, please. For public services, we have a plethora of different identified public services, such as legal services, case management, mortgage rental assistance, and then just kind of a general assistance and operations that kind of either are in addition to case management or other areas where we may look at for additional funding in the future. For mitigation, we have that tree and slash pile removal program, replanting program, as a lot of individuals have expressed that erosion has been a big concern for a lot of their properties. And then a general mitigation set aside to kind of meet that 15% threshold. That mitigation set aside could be utilized for multiple different programs. And then George is handing out, I believe, our next slide here, which is little web chart that I think he'll speak on.
Yeah, so as I've been thinking about the comments that we've received and some of the areas where we can improve in our communication, I felt it was important to just put together a system model that shows effectively what we're thinking right now. And so what I used is the tables that Aiden just went through as examples. So really what we're looking at right now, our relationship is with our funder, which is HUD, which we see to the left of Spokane County. When you look inside of this dashed box in purple, this would be our subrecipient. These are the service providers, the folks that will, and agencies that will be providing the direct client services. One of the things that we've been thinking about is within the homeless system, we have what's called the coordinated entry. So the idea behind that is that folks that are experiencing homelessness go through a generalized assessment to then determine what the eligibility criteria is and what the best fit for that individual is. And so we're looking at something similar to that here, where we have effectively a service navigator that then is identified. And that service navigator has a direct contract with Spokane County, but also has MOUs in place with other service providers to then provide the appropriate level of service. So, for example, economic development. Perhaps it's with an organization that has some small business enterprise training programs. We look at housing. Maybe it's one of our affordable housing developer that's willing to come in and help out. Mitigation. Maybe there's an entity out there that can help with slash pile removal, etc. Those folks would they would come into this service navigator and then to be diverted and directed to that appropriate service. But they're not then just left with that, let's say that agency that's doing slash pile removal. There's that ongoing relationship between the system navigator and the individual. And the thought process is that we start building out a by names list through this service navigator. That way we can keep track of folks with the highest needs and make sure that they're following through the process and getting to where they need to be in recovery along the way. So just kind of a general graphic to show some of our thought process here. So yeah.
Did the service navigator then, I don't know, campaigning, you're just asking a question. Could that be the long-term recovery group?
I think that would be an excellent place. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Additionally, from our perspective, we have to meet a duplication of benefits for each of these individuals. So coordinating with a service navigator to actually work with these individuals on the types of services they have will take a lot of the administrative capacity off of us, because they will be able to meet with that one person throughout their entire eligibility process, rather than having to meet with that person multiple times throughout the grant's life cycle and see that duplication of benefits process multiple times. Next slide, please. So kind of reiterating what I said earlier in our citizen participation process, we did have meetings in both the Elk and Medical Lake communities where we had identified some priority activities just from their public input, and then use that information to kind of help draft some of the plan in utilizing some of those resources. Any comments that were made during the public hearing, which was last Thursday, will be included in the action plan along with our response to any of those comments. And then, of course, the public comment period ended yesterday, so those will be included as well. Additionally, we have our disaster recovery mailing list on our HCD website. So individuals from the public who want to be notified of additional community engagement activities are encouraged to sign up for that mailing list to stay involved in the process. Next slide, please. So our final kind of timeline is that we intend to submit the action plan to HUD following legislative action for next Tuesday. We will be looking for approval to submit the action plan to HUD. And then following that, we will start drafting a request for proposal, request for inquiry that will be intended to be released in the next couple of months. And then specific programs will be identified. Any amendments will be adjusted for the actual action plan, and we will likely have versions 3 or 4 when we actually start kicking things off the ground.
And Ron, if you can go back to that system model, Aiden has mentioned RFP and RFI. Really, the idea is that we RFP that service navigator first and foremost, because we need to start collecting information on who's out there, what needs they have, so that then once we get those different service providers on, that they have a list of individuals that can start getting those services quickly. And we also have an idea of who's interested. Slash pile removal, I've never contracted to have slash piles removed before. So we gotta figure out who's out there, who's interested in pursuing, and if there is no one, we gotta start hitting the streets trying to find someone that would be willing to pursue that. So the RFI effectively would be for the external providers to identify who's out there, who's not out there, to see what kind of additional efforts we need to undertake to solicit that type of partnership. So so that's the RFP/RFI. We know we need that system navigator or that service navigator before we can do really much of anything else. Lastly, I want to provide you all with some really great reading. This is, we often get asked about CDBG and what's eligible, what can we do with this money? I've long told folks that CDBG is a blessing and a curse. The blessing is you can do just about anything with it. The curse is you can do just about anything with it. What you're looking at is, this is our, I guess, when you think about the football coach holding up his play card, that's what this is for us as we manage CDBG. So this says, does it meet an eligible activity and does it meet a national objective? If yes, then you can go. There are a bunch of nuances associated with that, but effectively everything that's on that eligible activity is something that we can work with. Now, at the end of the day, Aiden mentioned the 70% rule. We have to ensure that at least 70% of all of this money that's spent is benefiting folks earning less than 80% area median income. So I've worked with folks in the past that have seen these documents and said, well, hot dog, I want trees planted in my yard, but they don't meet the eligible criteria. So that's where we get into tricky situations.
So the ends in the columns, that doesn't mean no, right?
It does not mean no. It means that national objective is a no. So there are other ways. There's many different ways to get to an eligible activity and national objective.
That's why a lot of ends on these this sheet.
At the top, it says the N means not allowed, is what it says.
Yeah, so this is big shop talk, but this is why when you hear us talk, we usually say it depends, tell me more, because we can usually get there as long as the beneficiary is low moderate income, less than 80% area median income. But there's a lot of nuances, as you can see. So just provide that for some context.
But what are all the different columns at the top?
Those are the national objectives. So you've got the eligible activities listed down.
The key is on the back at the bottom.
Oh, thank you.
The back down at the bottom.
I see. Okay.
And I'll be completely honest, I work overseeing this program, and even I haven't seen some of these national objectives being identified. So.
So I just had a question about it sounds like this navigator approach sounds good to me. I mean, I think it's a good model to look at. What about the impacts to, like, Medical Lake, and like what if there's impacts that are overall community impacts? Or if there's a neighborhood there that is a low to moderate income neighborhood? Is it only about an individual person that was impacted and if they're eligible for a particular activity? It doesn't matter if there's I'm just thinking about like the accessibility of affordable housing in the future in Medical Lake. Are you able to do projects that have a community benefit? Or is it only based on the individual that was impacted?
Yeah, so that gets into those national objectives across the top. So what you're talking about is what we call LMA, low moderate income area benefit. So yes, we can, but there is a bunch of census information that we have to review to ensure. In this case, there also has to be a direct tie back to the disaster itself. So
the disaster would have had to like negatively impact a particular area that would be low that would be a census tract or something. Is that a certain census tract?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand. If someone was a renter and they were displaced, then how does that work? Because that, you know, obviously there was a landlord that lost a property or had their property very damaged or what have you. So does the landlord get the benefit or is there a dual benefit to that?
Yeah, and
Because the landlord might not be 80% of AMI, but the individual that lived in the rental unit might be.
yeah,
So I'm just wondering how that works.
and when you look at the document that I handed out from the Federal Registry, it talks about how many days we have to develop policies and procedures and other sorts of things. Effectively, we need to develop policies and procedures, which we start getting into in phase 2. Those policies and procedures are really going to address a lot of the questions that y'all have, so long as they meet the national objective eligible activity. We need our own process, and that's where then the service navigator follows those policies and procedures to ensure that we've got compliance and the right folks getting the right services. So
Or, yeah, I was thinking like you could have a grandparent or someone living in a home that is low to moderate income that was displaced, but the rest of the family maybe wouldn't qualify. I'm just thinking of different.
there's gonna be so many scenarios that none of us have considered that are gonna come up, and that's where that partnership with the service navigators is so essential to make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to within the grant, remaining compliant, and then to getting them the appropriate level of service.
Question. So I'm recalling that the administrative piece is like 2.something million out of the 40 work. So if the service navigator is doing some of that, kind of being a little bit of a hub of services, with the administrative dollars, potentially some of that go there to support a kind of administrative coordinating function potentially.
No, but we have public services. So right now with what we have in our plan, we have, I'm looking at the fine print here, 5.2, just short of $5.3 million going to public services. So that would pay for those activities that would be given or support the organization within that service navigator role. So the admin is we're going through our budget process right now. I think everyone here can acknowledge that 5% of the total to administer this grant for the next six years is going to be incredibly difficult for us to do. Fortunately, we run a very lean and efficient staff, but that money, the admin specific, will stay with our department to ensure that we have the right oversight and meet all the reporting objectives of the grant throughout its life cycle.
Does all of that, so that's a 6-year time frame. Does, I assume all of that admin money has to be spent on this effort?
Correct.
So what is that yearly? Couple $100,000?
Yeah. And let's say we get done with this whole thing in 3 years. I don't think that's gonna happen. But if we're done in 3 years and we've budgeted $200,000 a year, and we can see what our spend rate looks like, we can reallocate those funds out to service delivery if needed at that time. So kind of to Aiden's point, this is a very fluid process that as we learn and know more, the needs that existed when we got the data from FEMA and the Small Business Administration have changed significantly over the course of time. That was early on, and almost 2 years ago now. So what that looks like today and what that'll look like 2 years from now, we're not exactly sure, and we're going to revise and amend as appropriate. I do want to point out, sorry, Commissioner French, Washington State is the only other entity in the state of Washington that's received disaster recovery funds. That was for the Whatcom County floods. They submitted their plan the end of 2024, and they have done, as of April, they had already done 2 amendments to their plan. So just kind of to demonstrate how fluid this is as the needs change, we better understand what's going on out in the communities.
Currently, you've not added staff to work on it, correct?
Nope, Aiden is, yeah, 100% plus.
And you feel that's working?
For now.
Is sufficient? I just personally think we have $2.2 million if we a bigger team to do the project to the level we want to do. We should do that, but if you don't feel it's needed, I understand.
Yeah, and I appreciate the recognition. Aiden's done a fantastic job. He was humble in talking about the plan. Our technical assistance provider that's hired by HUD said that this is the best plan that they've ever seen come out of a first time grantee. And said that they said that if they were scoring it, they'd give him a 94%. So he did that while writing the 5-year consolidated plan and managing 16 separate contracts. So so we're giving him the space and support that he needs to make sure that we have the success that the communities expect us.
Sure, French. So if you are in a federally designated low to moderate income census tract, but your income clearly is above that threshold, are you still eligible for assistance through this program?
It depends. Yes. It depends on the type of project it is. So if it were, let's say we did a project years ago, where we were hooking folks up to sewer out off of Barker Road in the valley. So we were able to provide subsidy assistance to low income individuals, connect and help them with the financial cost of connecting to those sewer lines. Folks that were above those income thresholds, we did not help because they did not meet that eligible criteria. So it's variable depending on the project, but that's the example.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and want to acknowledge and thank Commissioner French and Commissioner Kearns for your help. I appreciate Commissioner French, your comments, but really appreciate the support that you all have been to us. There's ups and downs, and we're going to continue to have them through the recovery, and just really appreciate the support that y'all offer us as we work with your constituents.
Thank you for what you're doing to help out the communities that were impacted.
Yeah,
Really
you guys are
appreciate
doing
it.
a great job.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, Tim Fitzgerald.
Do you want us to go or you want us to defer?
How long is your presentation?
That could be quick when you find one to do the other.
Okay, we can do the other first.
And we'll do ours after.
Okay. Well, we are going to adjust, due to schedules, we are actually going to take, from our 2 p.m. consent agenda, item 3A. We're gonna move that up and we are gonna take that as a part of today's, our morning items. So, I'm gonna hand it over to Commissioner French to read a proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and I would like to read into the record, the proclamation as a motion in the matter of proclaiming July 17th, 2025 as Lawrence H. Haskell Appreciation Day in Spokane County, Washington. Whereas Lawrence Henry Haskell began his tenure as Spokane County Prosecuting Attorney on January 1, 2015, and whereas prior to his election, Larry Haskell had started with the Prosecuting Attorney's Office in 1998 and by 1999 began prosecuting a broad range of felony crimes from unlawful firearms cases to crimes committed by and against gang members and their associates as a member of the Spokane County Gang Prosecution Unit. And whereas prior to coming to Spokane County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, Haskell flew all B-52 models, including bombers at Fairchild Air Force Base, received several Air Force Commendation Medals, including the Meritorious Service Medal and the Global War on Terrorism Medal, and was also a B-1B pilot and instructor with the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service. Whereas after the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, Haskell returned to active duty and served in direct support of Operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom from Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, and retired as Lieutenant Colonel in 2005. And whereas after the military, Haskell returned to the prosecuting attorney's office and prosecuted gun, drug, and gang crimes federally as an assistant United States Attorney and Special Assistant United States Attorney with the Eastern District of Washington between 2010 and 2013. And whereas Haskell has served on the Airway Heights City Council and was twice elected to the board of directors of the Cheney School District. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Spokane County, Washington, on behalf of the citizens of Spokane County, do hereby celebrate and honor the exceptional public service and dedication of Spokane County Prosecuting Attorney Larry Haskell and proclaim July 17, 2025 as Lawrence H. Haskell Appreciation Day in Spokane County, dated this 15th day of July, 2025. Thank you, sir, for your service, both to this country.
All right, any comments?
Just thank you for your service to both this country and to this county. You've left a legacy that's going to be hard to match. And we are better for your service and your presence here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, this board continues to humble me and get me to the edge, and I know you know the edge I'm talking about. I'm one of those slip the letter in the inbox kind of a person. I am very proud of my military career, and I'm very proud of my service to the county. And over the course of the years, and I hope it shows, particularly now, under the deputies that I have in charge of both civil and criminal as well as family, I never let them forget who they work for and who we all work for, the people of Spokane County. They're first in my mind when it comes to money, policy, every statute that we follow, every constitutional provision that we follow, that the results are right, they're above board ethically. And I know I'm a broken record and they're gonna tell me, but I also emphasize that we treat each other better. Always strive to be a better human. So I thank the board. Again, you humble me every day. The work you do, I know sometimes you don't feel appreciated either, but you are by all of us. And I know the majority of the public supports what you do as well. So thank you. This is an unbelievable honor. Serving has been an unbelievable honor as the elected for 10 plus years. And then this, I don't know what more I could possibly say, just my eternal thanks. And my continued good wishes, like I said, continue to provide that good, solid government to the citizens that have come to expect it from you. And I'll do my best through my deputies and I hope the lasting influence that I've had on them to continue to serve you, the board, as your legal advisors, and the public at large. Thank you all, commissioners. Thanks to Mary Cuny as well. I know she's out of town right now, but it's been a heck of a ride. Thank you so much.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Thank you, Commissioner Carnes and the other commissioners that are here. Former State Senator Mike Padden, but here today on behalf of Congressman Michael Baumgartner and as his senior policy advisor. But the prosecutor and I go way back a long time. And before he was doing those highfalutin felonies, he was in district court handling DUIs in my courtroom as a district court judge. So that's how I first got to know the prosecutor. You talked about his very distinguished career as an Air Force pilot. I know he has some stories he could tell you later about some of the events that happened, and I've heard some of those. But we've got to remember in 2014, he was elected with just under 60% of the vote here from the citizens of Spokane County. And then 4 years later in 2018 was reelected and at that time was unopposed and received over 160,000 votes here in Spokane County. And then more recently, in 2022, he received over 56% of the vote. So he's had strong affirmation by the voters here in Spokane County of the work you've done and the philosophy that you've used in trying to maintain public safety. And in addition, as you commissioners know, he's not just all about criminal stuff. He does represent you folks also and has had civil attorneys. And I think the longest reigning civil attorney I ever know was Jim Amacio, and I guess he's still sometimes involved. So he was involved back when I was the presiding judge for the district court, helping us in various legal matters. But the prosecutor is noted for prosecuting cases that are referred to him by law enforcement and a greater percentage than most prosecutors in the state. He does examine each case carefully and make a decision whether it can go forward. But based on that, I don't know the exact percentage. I assume it's last I remember was 90% or more that you were actually taking to get resolved in court. So that I think shows a real commitment to public safety. You talked about in the resolution his commitment to local government in Cheney and Airway Heights. I want to mention, as a former 4th District Senator, he had very close relationships with the legislators in the 4th District and with the City of the Spokane Valley Council that they worked with very closely and continue to do so. He's also was active with WAPA. A number of times he would tell me what was going on with the legislative committee in WAPA, and a number of times he testified in favor of legislation in Olympia, especially during the time I chaired the Senate Law and Justice Committee. And his successor here also testified on occasion. So, but I want to end with a couple things. And the one, I might be the lone wolf in the wilderness crying about this, but I think it's remarkable, the state versus Richard Aguirre case. And I just briefly want to mention that Ruby Doss was murdered back in 1986. She was a prostitute and was murdered allegedly at the time by a policeman out of the Tri-Cities. So that case stayed there from 86 till about, I believe, originally was tried in 2001. And the police had, at the time, the fellow that was known as the most outstanding criminal defense attorney in the state of Washington, John Henry Brown. And the prosecutor went up against it. They had a jury trial. It resulted in a hung verdict. So no conviction, no nothing. And I will tell you from my observations and talking to other folks in the judicial system, the vast majority of prosecutors said, well, we gave it a good try. You know, we put on a big trial, hung jury, that's it. We're not going to try it again. But not this prosecutor. He wanted to seek justice for the victims. And so that got tried again in 2024. New evidence. The evidence was strong enough that the defense this time said they didn't want a jury. They wanted a Spokane County Superior Court judge to be the trier of fact. The other thing is that on this trial, Prosecutor Haskell tried the case himself. And I'll tell you, in counties the size of Spokane or larger, most prosecutors would have handed it off to the chief criminal deputy or somebody else to try the case. But he felt so strongly that he tried the case and he ended up with a conviction. So, I mean, he still very much had it in him to know his way around the courtroom and do a good job representing the state. Mr. Aguirre has been sentenced. I guess the case is on appeal. But the final thing was that he worked with law enforcement to raise the money to bring the children of Ruby Doss up for the trial and sentencing. And these folks made the statement to the defendant that their mom was more than just a prostitute, she was their mom. And they also were very thankful of the job that Prosecutor Haskell did and the results, of course. So I say all that because I don't think the prosecutor got enough credit for that case. I don't think the press covered it well enough. The congressman has been a longtime admirer of the prosecutor. And in fact, today on the floor of the House, gave a speech in your honor. So we'll have that. And I have to present to you two things. One, a certificate of congressional recognition from the congressman. I'll give it to your deputy. He's still your deputy, so he has to answer to you. And a letter from the congressman thanking you for your service. So with that, I say we give a salute. We are very thankful for the 10 years of service. I'm very thankful personally for our work together during legislative matters and the job that you've done. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Please thank Congressman Baumgartner as well. I appreciate that. I'll have to find that, see how that went. I'm surprised there wasn't some sort of a floor action on the other side about it. There may have been. I do want to say for the record, and the record is very important, some of those dates are not exactly the way it happened. The case was first filed in 2015 after a lengthy 29-year period where we knew, well, we had a DNA sample in the system in CODIS, but it didn't get a match until 2015. And from there, we had delays because of developments in DNA and that sort of thing. But it was a case that I started with Mark Zapola back in the day. And I stayed on it for trial number 2. And we're very grateful that we sufficiently set the record that the judge convicted. And we have very strong reason to believe that we're going to be able to withstand the appellate process. So thank you, Senator Patton, for bringing that up. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the congressman as well. And even having my name mentioned in that chamber is amazingly I don't have any words for that. So thank you. Thank you, board, again, for everything. I appreciate you so much.
When any other comments? Anybody else? Second call, third call? No one, okay. Well, Larry, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for all of us around this table, for all of us in this room, and thank you for your service to our country, our county, and each and every one of us here. So we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously, and we have a framed copy of the proclamation here for you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. we'd love to get a photograph with you. It's a little, we're a little cramped in here, so I don't know how. Oh, Gina? I'm sorry?
Open it up for all customers.
Oh, no, we called for it.
Oh,
Yep, yep. We called if there was anybody that wanted to testify.
Around, we feel around the corner.
Y'all heard it, so. So how would we like to do a photograph in here? Do we wanna,
Your steps in the courthouse.
That'd be fine.
we wanna step outside real quick and snap a photograph?
Sure.
Okay, Ron, do you wanna put us at ease on the, okay, well, we are gonna go to ease for 5 minutes. It is 11:18, so we will go to ease for 5 minutes, take a photograph, and we'll be right back.
So what does Iran look like from the cockpit of a B
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for the break there. And once again, thank you to our County Prosecutor Larry Haskell for his years of service. This now brings us to item number H. This is our County Clerk, Tim Fitzgerald. He's gonna talk to us about a piece of legislation that passed the legislature and its budgetary impacts.
Commissioner Curtis, thank you very much. That's a really hard act to follow, Larry. So, good morning, everybody. So we have a creative funding option to present to the board. And we'll give you two options and see which way you want to go with this. It is a creative funding opportunity. I'm going to be talking about a restricted fund. And then I'm going to talk about the general fund and see how you'd like to approach it. The legislature just passed a surcharge this past legislative session that goes into effect in July of this year. Surcharge allows the clerk to charge $5 for every civil filing. Two big categories, criminal, civil. Is that criminal? Everything else is civil. So we've been looking at that. We'll be charging that $5 starting in July. And we're looking at a projected income of this year revenue of about $28,335 that we can make on the surcharge. Into next year, we guesstimate about $68,000 we can make on using this surcharge. Important for the board to know that this surcharge fee can be waived by the court. It is a waivable fee. In addition to the surcharge fee, we have a court document viewer program that IT has held for years. IT can no longer manage the program. The funds have always stayed with IT. IT is going to transfer the program to the clerk's office, and we're going to run the program. And that allows law firms to access our records by paying the clerk's office to access to records and to make copies. That income is about $34,000 a year. So right now I'm talking in the vicinity of $130,335. I'd like that money. It's designated to the clerk's office. Option one would be to put it into a restricted fund, similar to what the auditor has with their 103 fund. I will pull 2 full-time FTEs out of the general fund, and I will put them in the restricted fund, and I will pay them out of the restricted fund and not touch the general fund. That's option number one. Option number two, if the board chooses, you'd like to have that money go into the budget office, into the county general fund. I don't have a problem with that. It's designated for the clerk's office. My ask to the board is if you choose to do it that way, I'd like to be compensated for that on my target budget. So my 7%, I'll have that $130,000 subtracted from my 7% reduction so I can meet my target budget. Those 2 FTEs would stay in the general fund because that money is going to the general fund now, and then they'd be covered that way. And so those are the 2 options. We would do a restricted fund to handle this funding for the clerk's office. Again, it is designated to just the clerk's office. Or we can do it in a general fund with the compensation of the reduction in my overall 7%. Jeff or Mike, I think I hit the key things. Jeff, anything to add to that?
Yeah, budget office, we prefer to go to the general fund, just one less fund to manage. There is an option. There's no supplantation language in this, so things could be shifted around. However, the bill was obviously written to help the clerk's office. It says so very clearly, so I think we should do that. That's the intent of the legislation. I think it would be wise to look the next few months, see how many times the courts waive the fee to get a sense of what we expect to bring in next year of actual. We're struggling with the courts right now. We've just ran the numbers. They've been waiving about $700,000 a year in fees in Superior and District Court. And that's real dollars. That's not including inflation. And those are waived fees that have already gone through pretrial services saying you should pay this much because per your income against the grid and your household size and your assets, this is what the world deems you should be paying. You're still waiving that. They're waiving almost everything in some fees. So that's a different story. Back to this one.
Yeah, would you say that again? Was that Spokane County?
Yeah, between Superior Court and District Court, we've been running the numbers. I've talked with Aaron in pretrial services. When a person comes in, pretrial does the indigency check. and they look to see, you know, what you qualify for. If you're a family of two, a family of six, what your income is, your percentage on, you know, poverty scales, your assets, and then you are expected to, a lot of times they have money, but they don't have enough to pay it all at one time. To hire a lawyer, put 10,000 down. But that's a very different thing than over the next 2 years, you can pay $100 a month. And so pretrial goes through the work of fairly and, you know, equally saying this is how much you should pay. And then that's getting waived. So in my mind, we should either not hire people to do that. If everything's just gonna be waived, why are we paying people to figure it out? When I asked pretrial, they said almost 100% of some.
Did you give a dollar amount estimate for what that was? Maybe that was what-
About 450 in Superior, about 350 in District, so 700,000-800,000 for all.
If we created a special fund for the courts and that money either went in or did not go into that special fund to drive the cost of the courts. I mean, you know, I like the idea of going to a special fund for him, even though it is extra work. Because I understand how the memory of man can get cloudy over years. And all of a sudden that becomes part of the general fund and then goes away.
Fair point.
And stuff, so, but for the sake of consistency, I'd like to apply that same logic to the courts. You don't want to pay fees, fine, it's part of your budget.
I think there's definitely some things that we're learning through this that have to be brought to light during the budget process. I think where the intent is for this to be supporting the clerk's office, I think that's the right intent. I would encourage the board, like Jeff said, is let's go through the rest of the budget process here. There's a lot of decisions you all have to make as opposed to making isolated decisions and getting better visibility into all these types of budget impacts. In this case, these are all impacting our public defenders. We're providing more services. We're doing it at free cost of some that aren't being eligible for it. And we're waiving it, not getting a recovery from our tax dollars.
You're not waiving it, you're shifting the cost to the taxpayers.
Somebody's paying.
Someone's paying it, there's nothing for free. So taxpayers are paying for the fee instead of those that are using the system.
I would be welcoming more information about the larger issue, but I would probably lean a little bit toward a special fund too, for the same reason that you say. I mean, the statute says must be used for the clerk's office, so it's not an intent, it's a requirement.
Jeff is a fair point.
But the supplantation language.
It says operationally, so it doesn't dedicate, like Vicky says archival, so she must do archival. Mine says operationally, so I can put it anywhere in the clerk's office, and that's what Jeff's alluding to. It is. And again, from the clerk's office point, whatever you all decide, I'm good. I'm good either way. It's just the two positions I'm trying to protect. That's my instinct, keeping those two people. That's what I need, one way or the other.
Well, I don't think you should use it differently. Legally, general fund money we already use on the clerk's office. This could supplant that, and then you could use that money to get me a raise. That's just an example. But I don't think
You're not recommending.
I'm not recommending that because I don't think it's the right thing to do.
I got you.
And so, because it's kind of like mental health, we can't backfill mental health. The supplantation language, you only can, that particular fund, we only can do new and expand. So I've heard 2 for special fund.
I think at this point, with so many budget decisions that have to be made, I think let's start with general, let's track this. And as a part of our whole budget process, then I think as we get later in the year, if it looks like it makes sense, I think we can, you know, if we're gonna do a special account, I think we should wait and do that let's make that decision later. I don't know if I necessarily want to make that decision today. Let's make it as a part of the whole budget process as we, you know, as Tim comes back in later this year to talk about operations, where we're at with funding and the whole picture instead of just one-offing this one decision today.
We'll keep track of how much is coming in starting this month. So in the fall, You can see how much has come in.
Mhm.
You can make an annualized assessment based off that. And then at that point, if the board's still thinking a separate fund, we can do it that way.
And if we get to the end of the year and the account is, we brought in zero because every judge is waiving it, then I think we have another discussion to have.
Well, I wanted to mention that point in fairness to you also, you know, that it's not just guaranteed.
Yeah. The IT money, that 34,000, I've talked with Kevin. It was the one piece when Rona moved over to the purchasing department. You recall her job had kind of withered down to not much with Workday implementation. And that was
Planning,
one, she went to planning from IT.
Right.
And so part of that moved that little segment of her work to the clerk's office. They'll be taking it on. And so Kevin and Tim have talked and they're in agreement. The revenue from that should follow the work. So that is an established amount of money. That's people buying an annual subscription. It's a fairly static amount. We know what it is. So that amount of this equation, I think, is pretty solid. And the same thing, we can just keep track of it, and then in the budget process in the fall, you guys can kind of make that final decision which way to go, but we'll notate there's at least significant thoughts on a specialized fund. And that takes time too. Like we'll have to work with Vicky to actually set up a fund so we can start looking at that as we go in the budget process.
Sounds good.
Any questions? Okay. Also, David.
All right, that brings us to miscellaneous items. We have Jim Amacio.
Thank
Noctis
you,
Weed Board.
Vice Chair Kearns. I have two items to remind the board of and get some direction from you. Firstly, next week is your public hearing on the request from the Spokane County Noxious Weed Control Board to increase their levy a certain amount of money effective January 1st, 2026. And so what I had done, board members, is I had prepared a draft resolution where after the public hearing, you would accept the recommendation of the Spokane County Noxious Weed Control Board and increase the assessment as of January 1st, 2026. So my question to the board is, do you want me to include that in the agenda packet, which I place on next week's legislative consent agenda, or do you want me to leave only the notice of public hearing? As the board is aware, after your public hearing next week, you have three options. One, to adopt the recommendation of the Spokane County Noxious Weed Control Board. Two, to modify it how you believe it should be appropriate. Or three, to refer it back to the Noxious Weed Control Board for them to take further public testimony and make a subsequent recommendation to the board. So would you like me to add the draft resolution I prepared with the word draft on it, which in effect adopts the recommendation of the Noxious Weed Control Board to increase the assessment, or simply leave the notice of public hearing and wait until after you hold the public hearing and then you can make your decision?
Yes.
Commissioner French, I'm gonna guess on that. Yes, follow through with that, please, a bit.
Well, I'd rather just do the notice, not the.
The action.
Yeah, not the action, because it,
Understood.
when it gives the appearance that you've pre-approved, and, I don't like going into a public hearing with the appearance that we pre-approved something. And just assume, we could take an extra week or two and come back and take an action.
That would be fine, Commissioner French, and I appreciate that. That's why I think Scott suggested it come before you. The importance of the resolution you pass is, once the resolution is passed, of course, it goes to the assessor's office to implement and whatever you decide in the 2020 on the next tax statement next year. So So thank you very much. Then I will not include my draft resolution in the agenda packet.
Can I share one other thing? On Q6 News this morning, they were talking about the APA. And what they said is it's going to increase the monthly fee and there'll be an increase to your property tax equal to the monthly fee. What they did is they doubled it. So somebody needs to get a hold of Q6 and say, yeah, they said, you know, in addition to the monthly fee, you've got another $15 property tax increase available. So
Bell's on there.
so anyway, just
Yeah, I've seen.
somebody
something
needs to
That is promoting
correct it.
$30.
Yeah.
If you're on a septic system, it is 30.
But it's 15 if you're not. And
That's right.
so
Yeah.
15 water only.
Pat,
Same
do you have
as it
something?
is.
Yep, we did that interview yesterday with Derek Strom on KXLY, and I anticipate having more media interest. So we'll reach out to the station and see if they have a digital version or if they're planning to run that package again today and give them the correction.
You said it was KHQ?
Yeah, it was KHQ.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on the morning news package and stuff, so.
Great. I see Martha Lou back there taking notes, so I'll let her reach out. And then,
the Spin article was accurate, right? It said 15 and then 30. But yeah, I've also seen, and maybe it's the same thing you saw.
Yeah.
I was like 30. Yes, there is one $30 fee, but they were acting like it was everybody. So I was
Yeah.
confused about that.
No, and no increase. It's the same as what it is today.
Right. Right.
The second item, Mr. Vice Chair, is,
Oh.
I'm sorry, are we
One
through
moment.
that? I'm
Pat, do you have one other thing, Pat?
oh, no, I'll let Jim finish.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The second thing, I want to remind the board that this afternoon on your legislative consent agenda, the last item is for the board to take action on modifying the composition of the Spokane Regional Health District Board of Health effective July 27, 2025. And you recall, you directed legal counsel to place only option 1 before the board. So the resolution that you see and the agenda sheet only deals with option number 1. So just to refresh your memory, I will be at that legislative consent agenda meeting if you have any questions that I can respond to.
And that was to put a city representative that's
First,
first, and then county commissioners.
2,
And then cities after that.
that is correct.
And if at some point we wanted to talk about how we would rotate or choose different cities, is that something for another day then? Or would you don't think that has to be in this resolution?
Mr. Waldo, you're correct. If the board wanted to direct legal counsel to do that, we would do a separate resolution
Okay.
articulating how you would
How you
appoint
would appoint
city
those.
representatives, if you will, small towns and city representatives.
That sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. That's all I have.
Any other miscellaneous items? Pat?
Yes, I'll just give a brief update to the board, so this isn't the first time you hear it, but next week, the board will be we anticipate taking action on a few items. So we'll be working with Justin and his team and Martha Lou to prepare some press items. If those are issues or topics you've been working on closely, just let me or the chair know. Otherwise, it'll be the chair and Justin in the quote space. And then on the APA, I did want to let you know that our mailer is going out this week. Postage has been delivered and will be invoiced for the additional cost. We were able to keep it, I believe, under $40,000. The board had approved up to $75,000. So good news there. The mail piece will go out, so look for it in your inbox along with your ballot this week. We'll also be coordinating and starting to post today. It might already be posted. Sharissa is leading the charge with the other jurisdictions on social media postings, quick did you know fact type videos, reels, trying to get some social media awareness out there as people are making an informed choice. So as we have additional media come in on the APA, I'll let you know. We had one media request this morning. It's been handled, and that's about it.
All right, thank you, Pat.
On the KSPS spotlight,
Yeah, I saw the promos on Facebook.
we went over and over the fees and that there was no increase. So if someone's watching that show, we hit it several times. So it was a good interview, and Ben Bradabo did a really good job.
So be sure to join Commissioner Waldrop on KSPS World.
All those viewers on a Saturday, on a mid-July Saturday night. I'm sure they're all,
Everyone makes a difference.
6:30. They're all gonna choose to
Spread the
do that.
word.
Maybe we can direct media to watch that.
Yes, yes. We talk about the activities, we talk about everything you can do with it, so the city is newly back on all the topics.
Any final?
We
Matt?
had one executive session item this morning, 5 minutes, no action, pending and potential litigation. Scott Simmons, Matt Folsom, Kyle Tuck.
Okay, you heard the purpose, pending a potential litigation. It is 11:48. Will give us 2 minutes to clear the room.
Josh, it's real estate, not litigation.
Real estate. Remind me, real estate. And that is under RCW 4230-110-1C. We will start the executive session at 11:50. At the conclusion of that executive session, we will adjourn for the morning and we will reconvene at our 2 o'clock legislative meeting over in our hearing room.